The colony world of Rathira 7 was not a place of wonder or glory. It was quiet, almost forgotten by the rest of the galaxy. Settlements clung to the edges of wide forests, their houses built from local stone and reinforced metal sheets brought down from old cargo ships. For the people living there, life was simple: planting crops, tending machines, fixing what broke, and surviving the long seasons of storms. Among these people was Ethan Hale, a boy of 16. He had no fame, no wealth, and no remarkable power. What he did have was a curious spirit. He often wandered away from the small settlement, drawn by the pull of the forest. While others saw danger in the tall, shadowed trees, Ethan saw mystery. On one such morning, with a satchel slung over his shoulder and a half-broken scanner clutched in his hands, Ethan stepped into the forest again. He liked to search for old fragments of tech that sometimes washed up from forgotten battles. His settlement had little, and even a shard of old alloy could be traded for tools. The forest was quiet, except for the hum of insects and the rustling of leaves. Ethan walked carefully, his boots crunching against dry ground. He thought of nothing, more than his usual wandering, until a sound unlike anything he had ever heard reached him. It was a deep, low growl, half breath, half thunder. Ethan froze. His heart pounded. Slowly he turned toward the source. Between the trees in the shadow of a cliffside, he saw something that made his breath catch in his throat. There, stretched out upon the ground, was a creature he had only heard of in stories, told by passing traders: a dragon. Its body was vast, its scales gleaming faintly like molten silver even under the dim forest light. Long horns curled back from its head and folded wings rested along its sides. The beast looked tired, its breath uneven, its golden eyes half shut as if in pain. Ethan's mind screamed at him to run, to hide, to tell the elders. But something about the way the creature lay there stopped him. This was no rampaging monster. This was a being hurt, alone, perhaps dying. He swallowed hard and stepped closer. His boots snapped a twig, and the dragon's eyes snapped open, burning like suns. Ethan froze again, raising his hands quickly. I'm not here to hurt you," he said, his voice shaking. "I didn't know you were here." The dragon's gaze lingered on him. For a long, heavy moment, neither moved. Then the dragon lowered its head back to the ground, as if too weary to chase or fight. Ethan took a careful step closer. His fear was real, but stronger than fear was something else. A strange pull of compassion. "You're hurt," Ethan whispered. He noticed dark marks along the dragon's side. Faint, burns and gashes that looked far too precise to be natural. Weapons fire. The stories he had heard came rushing back. Tales of wars fought far from Rathira 7, where mighty races clashed for power. He never thought such things could spill into his quiet world. The dragon shifted, a sound like gravel rolling in its throat. To Ethan's astonishment, words followed, deep and rumbling. "Leave, human." Ethan blinked. He had heard that some dragons spoke, but hearing it with his own ears shook him. "You can talk," he said softly. Then, gathering a small courage, "But you need help." The dragon's eye narrowed. "Help? From you?" "Yes," Ethan said. His voice trembled, but he did not back away. "I don't have much, but I can bring water, maybe food. I don't know what else to do, but I can try." The dragon gave a low, rough sound, half a laugh, half a cough. Strange human. Others would run. Ethan felt heat rise in his cheeks. "Maybe I should, but I won't." For the rest of that morning, Ethan stayed near. He found his flask and placed it carefully before the dragon. The beast lowered its head, drinking slowly, each movement deliberate. When it finished, the dragon gave a small nod, almost like thanks. Day after day, Ethan returned. He brought water, sometimes food, though he never knew what a dragon truly ate. He gathered plants, berries, even meat from the hunters in his settlement, pretending he was simply hungry himself. Each time, he left part of it for the creature. At first the dragon spoke little, but slowly, words grew between them. Ethan learned its name, or at least part of it, Eris. It was not a name the people of Rathira 7 would understand, but it was enough for Ethan. "Why are you here?" Ethan asked one evening, sitting on a rock near the dragon's resting place. Eris's golden eyes flickered, then dimmed. "I was hunted, ambushed far from here. I escaped, wounded." Ethan leaned forward, his curiosity shining. "Hunted? By who?" "Enemies," Eris said simply. Then, after a pause, "The galaxy is wide, human. Not all seek peace." Ethan nodded slowly. He had always known his people were small, weak compared to the greater races beyond, but hearing it from the mouth of a dragon made it real. Despite the mystery, Ethan never pressed too far. He did not ask why Eris mattered, or who had wanted him dead. All he knew was that his new friend was hurt, and that was enough. And so, the days grew into weeks. Ethan found himself eager each morning, slipping away before the settlement stirred, returning only at dusk. He felt alive in a way he never had before. The dragon was proud and fierce, yet patient enough to listen to his questions, even his foolish ones. "Do you fly often?" Ethan asked once, staring at the folded wings. "When skies are mine," Eris answered, his voice softer. "Not now. I wish I could see it," Ethan murmured. "Perhaps," Eris replied, and though his tone was weary, there was a spark there, a promise. But not all was safe. Shadows stirred at the edge of the forest. Ethan sometimes thought he saw shapes among the trees too quick to follow. Once he returned to find a scorch mark near Eris's hiding place, as if a stray blast had struck the ground. He asked Eris about it, but the dragon only rumbled, "The hunters still search." That night Ethan lay awake in his small room, staring at the ceiling. He thought about the dragon's pain, the danger, and the strange bond between them. He could not explain it to anyone, not his parents, not the elders. They would only tell him to stay away. But he could not, because when he looked into Aris's eyes, he did not see a monster or a ruler or even an alien. He saw a being who was alone, who had bled and struggled just like anyone else. And Ethan knew, without fully understanding why, that he would stand beside that dragon no matter what came. The forest no longer felt as peaceful as before. The air carried a weight, a tension Ethan could not explain. For weeks he had walked the same paths to reach Eris's hidden resting place, but lately, each step made him uneasy. The birds sometimes fell silent. The trees seemed to hold their breath, and always, he had the feeling that unseen eyes were watching. Eris the dragon knew it too. His golden eyes scanned the horizon more often, and his voice carried a sharp edge whenever he spoke. "The hunters are close," Eris said one morning. His body still bore scars, but strength had returned to his wings and limbs. "They will not give up easily." Ethan's throat went dry. "Then we should hide deeper, shouldn't we? Move farther into the cliffs?" Eris shook his head slowly. "They track more than footprints. They use machines, signals, patience. They will wait until I falter." His eyes narrowed. "But they do not expect you." Ethan blinked. "Me? You are small." Eris rumbled. "Unnoticed. You carry no weapons. To them, you are nothing." The words stung, but Ethan understood. Compared to armies and empires, compared to dragons and their enemies, what was one boy from a forgotten colony? Yet somehow that very fact gave him courage. If no one noticed him, then maybe he could help. Still, Ethan could not shake the unease. That night, as he lay in his bed, the forest wind howling against the walls, he dreamed of shadows with burning eyes and voices that hissed like broken wires. He woke with his heart racing, sweat damp on his brow. The ambush came 3 days later. Ethan had risen early, the first rays of morning light cutting through the mist. His satchel hung over his shoulder as he slipped past the settlement's edge, heart calm and routine. The path was quiet, yet the silence felt heavier than ever. Even the insects had gone still. He quickened his steps, weaving through the trees, until he reached the clearing where Eris often rested. But today the dragon stood tall, wings half open, eyes blazing. "Ethan," Eris growled, his voice low. "Go back." Ethan froze. "Why? What's happening?" Eris's head tilted sharply. "They are here." Before Ethan could speak again, the forest exploded with light. Blue beams of plasma tore through the trees, carving holes into bark and soil. Figures in black armor emerged from the shadows. Mercenaries, their helmets blank, their rifles raised. Ethan dropped flat as a blast seared the ground where he had stood. The mercenaries shouted in a harsh language he didn't know, their movements sharp and practiced. They had been waiting. Eris roared, the sound shaking the forest itself. With one beat of his wings, the dragon leapt upward, a wall of silver scales and fury. Plasma bolts struck against his hide, sparking off like lightning against stone, but some burned deep, drawing blood. Ethan scrambled behind a fallen log, heart pounding so loudly he could barely hear the fight. He peeked out only once, just in time to see Eris slash a mercenary's weapon to pieces with one sweep of his claws. But there were too many. "Bring it down," one of the mercenaries shouted through a comm device. "Aim for the chest. Don't let it escape." Eris twisted, his tail sweeping through two attackers, sending them crashing into the trees. But in that moment, another mercenary raised a heavy rifle, its barrel glowing with the heat of a charged shot. Ethan's breath caught. The weapon was aimed not at Eris's wings or limbs, but directly at his heart. Time seemed to slow. Ethan didn't think. He only moved. His legs carried him out from behind the log across the open ground. He heard Eris shout his name, a warning that shook the air, but he didn't stop. He threw himself forward between the weapon and the dragon. The shot fired. A searing, burning pain tore through Ethan's body. His chest exploded with heat, his legs collapsing beneath him. He fell, the world tilting and spinning around him. He hit the ground hard, breath ripped away, unable to move. Through blurred vision, he saw Eris's golden eyes widen in horror. The mercenary who fired the shot never had the chance to fire again. With a roar like thunder, Eris lunged, his claws, crushing the weapon and the soldier alike. Energy blasts flashed from every side, but Eris fought with fury unlike anything Ethan had ever seen. His wings shielded the boy's fallen form as he tore through the attackers. Ethan lay still, his body refusing to answer him. He tried to lift his hand but couldn't. He tried to call out, but only a faint whisper escaped his lips. Pain burned through him, then slowly turned to numbness. Above him, the sky swirled, the battle raging. Mercenaries fell one by one, scattered by the might of the dragon. Finally, with a last roar, Eris unleashed a burst of fire so hot the very air shimmered, driving the survivors fleeing into the trees. Silence returned. Eris dropped beside Ethan, his massive form lowering to the earth. His voice, usually proud and commanding, trembled. "Ethan, stay with me." The boy's vision swam. He could hardly see the dragon's face now, only golden light in the blur. His chest felt heavy, his arms and legs distant, like they no longer belonged to him. I tried," Ethan whispered. His lips barely moved. "Didn't want them to hurt you." Eris bowed his great head close, so that Ethan could feel the warmth of his breath. "You shielded me, a human child. Shielded a dragon." Ethan tried to smile, though his lips barely curved. "Friends. Help each other." The dragon's eyes closed for a moment, as if holding back a storm inside. Then gently, carefully, he lifted Ethan with his claws, cradling him as if he were made of glass. "You will not die here," Eris vowed, his voice like fire and stone. "Not after this. Not after such courage." With a mighty beat of his wings, the dragon rose into the sky, carrying Ethan away from the battlefield. The boy's world faded into darkness, the sound of wings the last thing he heard. When Ethan next opened his eyes, he was no longer in the forest. Bright lights shone above him, white and clean. Strange machines hummed softly. He tried to move, but his body did not answer. Not his hands, not his arms, not his legs. Only his eyes obeyed. Panic rose in his chest. His lips parted, but no sound came out. Then a familiar shadow fell across him. Golden eyes looked down, calm yet burning with something deeper than fire. "Ethan," Eris said softly, his voice gentler than ever. "You are safe. You are broken, but safe." The boy tried to speak, but only a faint sound escaped. Eris seemed to understand anyway. "You took the shot meant for me," the dragon continued. "You are more than you believe, more than you know." Ethan's vision blurred again, not from pain this time, but from tears. He had saved his friend. That was all that mattered. What he did not know, what he could not know, was the truth hidden beneath it all. He had not saved just any dragon. He had saved the Imperial dragon, heir to one of the most powerful empires in the galaxy. And because of that, his life, and the fate of humanity, would never be the same. Ethan drifted in and out of dreams for what felt like days. Sometimes he was floating in darkness. Sometimes he was falling through endless skies. Voices called to him, distant and muffled. Once, he thought he heard his mother crying. But when he opened his eyes, there was only silence and light. At last he woke fully. The ceiling above him was smooth, white, and glowing softly. Strange shapes ran along the walls, symbols he did not understand. The air smelled clean, almost sharp. Unlike the damp forest or dusty settlement, machines hummed quietly nearby, their lights blinking in steady rhythm. Ethan tried to sit up. Nothing happened. His heart raced. He tried again, harder, willing his arms to push him upright. His body refused. He tried to wiggle his fingers, move, his toes, lift his head. Nothing. Only his eyes shifted, darting around the room. Fear gripped him like ice. Why can't I move? The sound of heavy steps approached. The floor shook slightly with each one. Then a shadow filled the doorway and a deep voice spoke his name. Ethan. Relief washed through him. Erison, the dragon, entered, his massive form shifting slightly smaller, his body glowing faintly until he looked more like a tall, armored figure than a towering beast. Ethan's eyes widened. He had never seen Eris like this before. The disguise was not human, not dragon, but something between, cloaked in silver light. Eris lowered himself beside the bed, his golden eyes warm. "You wake." Ethan's lips trembled. He forced air through his throat, but only a weak whisper came out. I can't move." Eris's gaze softened. "You saved me. The weapon struck your spine. Your body is broken." The words hit Ethan harder than the shot itself. His chest rose and fell quickly as panic returned. "But broken? Forever?" The dragon's great hand, clawed yet gentle, rested near his shoulder. "Not forever. There are ways. Not here, not yet. But you live, Ethan. That is what matters." Tears stung Ethan's eyes. I don't feel alive." For a long while, Eris said nothing. He simply stayed, his presence filling the room with quiet strength. Finally, he rumbled softly, "Do not judge your worth by movement alone. You gave what no warrior, no soldier, no dragon would have given. You gave yourself." Ethan blinked slowly, his tears slipping down his cheeks. I didn't want them to hurt you." Eris bowed his head. "And so you carried their fire. A human boy, small and fragile, shielding a dragon." His voice lowered. "The galaxy will remember." Ethan frowned at those words. He didn't understand. Why would anyone beyond this strange room care about him? He was only a boy from a forgotten colony. The days that followed were both hard and strange. Ethan remained in the bed, unable to move. Machines kept him alive, tubes and wires connected to him. He hated it. He hated needing help for even the smallest things. Sometimes the frustration made him want to scream, but he couldn't even do that. Not loudly. Yet he was never alone. Eris stayed with him often, sometimes silent, sometimes speaking in his low, steady voice. The dragon told him stories of distant stars, of worlds that glittered like jewels, of great ships that sailed through the void. Ethan listened with wide eyes even when sorrow tugged at his heart. "I wish I could see them," Ethan whispered once. "You will," Eris replied, firm and certain. Other times, Eris seemed to argue with unseen voices. Strange figures in shimmering armor visited, bowing deeply to the dragon. Ethan watched, puzzled. They never bowed to anyone in his settlement, and whenever Eris spoke to them, they obeyed without question. "Who are they?" Ethan asked one evening. Eris hesitated. "Guardians." "Yours?" The dragon's eyes glowed faintly. "Yes." Ethan thought about that long after the visitors left. Guardians. Bowing. Obeying. Something about it didn't fit with the idea of Eris as just a wounded traveler, but Ethan did not press. Part of him feared the answer. As days stretched on, Ethan began to notice whispers. When the armored figures entered, they sometimes glanced at him with curiosity, even awe. Once he heard one murmur, "The boy who saved the crown." Ethan frowned. "What crown?" The guardian stiffened, glancing quickly at Eris, who growled low until the figure left without another word. Later, when they were alone, Ethan asked softly, "What did he mean?" Eris looked at him for a long time, golden eyes unreadable. Then he said, "Not yet?" That answer only deepened Ethan's confusion. He wanted to ask again, to demand the truth, but exhaustion always pulled him back. His body was weak, and his mind often fogged by pain. Still, each day his determination grew. If he could not move, then he would listen. If he could not fight, then he would learn. One night, as the machines hummed softly and the lights dimmed, Ethan whispered, "Eris, do you ever regret it? Meeting me?" The dragon leaned closer, his gaze sharp. "Regret?" "I slowed you down," Ethan said bitterly. "You were hiding, fighting to survive. Then I showed up, and now I can't even move. I'm useless." Eris's voice rumbled, deep and firm. "You are not useless. You are the reason I breathe. You are the reason I stand here." His eyes glowed brighter. "If not for you, I would be ash beneath the forest soil. Remember this, Ethan. Weakness is not the absence of worth." Ethan's throat tightened. "But I'm just me." Eris's head tilted. "And that is enough." The words sank deep, warming him even as tears rolled down his cheeks again. For the first time since the ambush, Ethan believed that maybe, just maybe, he was more than his broken body. Weeks passed. Ethan slowly adjusted to life in his still body. He learned to communicate with blinks and whispers. The machines around him even began to respond, translating his eye movements into commands. But more than anything, he watched Eris. The dragon often stepped outside, speaking in low tones with visitors who carried messages from across the stars. Ethan caught fragments. Rebellion crushed. Council demands proof. Imperial succession. Imperial. The word sent a shiver down Ethan's spine. One afternoon, when the visitors left and the room was quiet again, Ethan gathered his courage. "Eris, who are you, really?" For a long moment, the dragon said nothing. His golden eyes glowed like fire in the dim light. Then at last he spoke. "I am more than a traveler, more than a warrior. Ethan, I am heir to the Draconic Empire, Crown Imperial." The words struck like thunder. Ethan's breath caught. "Empire? Crown? You mean, you're—" "Yes," Eris said. His voice carried both weight and sorrow. "The dragon you saved was not just a stranger. You saved the Imperial dragon, future ruler of my people." Ethan stared at him, stunned. His mind whirled with memories, the guardians bowing, the whispers, the word crown. It all made sense now, but the thought overwhelmed him. I didn't know. I thought you were just my friend." Eris lowered his head until his gaze was level with Ethan's. "And that is why your act was pure. You did not save me for power or reward. You saved me because your heart chose it. That is greater than any empire. Ethan's eyes filled again. But I'm broken. How can I matter to an empire? You already do, Eris said firmly. The galaxy speaks of you, the boy who stood before fire to shield the crown. They will know your name, Ethan. They will know humanity through you. Ethan lay silent, the weight of those words pressing on him. He had never imagined leaving Rathira 7, never imagined anyone beyond his village knowing who he was. And now, he was the one who had saved an emperor-to-be. It was frightening. But also somewhere deep inside it was hopeful. That night, as he drifted toward sleep, Ethan thought of his small settlement, his family, the quiet life he had left behind. He thought of Eris, proud and fierce, yet gentle when speaking to him. And he thought of the vast empire beyond the stars, waiting for a future he had unknowingly changed. He was no longer just a boy from a forgotten colony. He was something more. News traveled faster than light across the empire. Whispers became stories, and stories became truth. Every world, every outpost, every drifting station spoke the same words. The Imperial dragon lives. And more than that, he was saved by a human boy. Ethan did not know this at first. He was still in the quiet white chamber, still lying in his bed with machines humming at his side. To him, each day felt the same. Wake, breathe, listen to Eris, rest. But beyond those walls, the galaxy stirred. Delegations came wrapped in armor and robes. Some were tall, insect-like beings with crystal masks. Others were scaled creatures like Eris, though none as large or radiant. Some were humans too, from colonies richer and older than Rathira 7. All bowed deeply when they entered the chamber, where Eris stayed, and every one of them glanced at Ethan. At first he thought it was only curiosity. Then he noticed their eyes lingered too long. Some nodded respectfully. Some whispered in tones of awe. One, a gray-scaled elder dragon, bowed not only to Eris, but to Ethan as well. It made Ethan's stomach twist. He was used to being invisible, just a boy who fixed broken tools and carried water. Now strangers looked at him as if he were important. He whispered to Eris one evening, "They keep staring." Why? Eris's gaze met his. "Because you did what none of them would have done." "I didn't do anything special," Ethan protested weakly. You threw yourself before fire for another," Eris said firmly. "That act speaks louder than crowns and councils. They see you now as a symbol, a savior." Ethan's throat tightened. "But I don't want to be a symbol, I just wanted you safe. And that," Eris said softly, "is why you matter most." The truth of Eris's identity spread quickly. Ethan soon understood the scale of what he had done. Eris was not just heir to an empire. He was the crown Imperial, future ruler of countless worlds. His survival meant stability, order, even peace across systems that might otherwise collapse into war. And Ethan, an ordinary human boy, had been the shield that made that survival possible. The council demanded to meet him. The chamber was filled one morning with leaders from many races. The air was heavy with perfume, smoke, and strange scents. Their clothes shimmered, their eyes sharp. They bowed to Eris, then turned to look at Ethan. One spoke in a voice that was clear and ringing. "You are the human who saved the crown. You have changed history." Ethan wanted to shrink into the bed. His voice cracked as he whispered, "I didn't mean to change anything." Laughter rippled among some of the delegates. Not cruel, but amused, as if they could not understand such modesty. Another stepped forward, a human woman with silver hair and a uniform marked with stars. "You are a hero, Ethan Hale. Humanity owes you. The Empire owes you." The words felt heavy. He was no hero. He was just a boy who acted without thinking. But no one seemed to believe that. After the council left, Eris remained by his side. "You see now?" Eris asked quietly. Your name will be spoken on worlds you cannot imagine. Ethan turned his eyes away. I don't want worlds. I just want to move again, to walk, to be myself. Aris studied him for a long moment. Then he said, there is a choice. Ethan looked back quickly. Choice? My people, Aris explained, possess technology that can restore you. Flesh, bone, even the broken cord of your spine. They can give you back what you have lost. More than that, they can make you stronger. Ethan's heart leapt. To move again, to run, to stand, to feel the earth beneath his feet. But the thought was tangled with fear. Stronger? You mean, not just human? Aris did not look away. Yes, your body may be rebuilt with both human craft and draconic design. You would live not as you were, but as something more. Ethan fell silent. To walk again was everything he dreamed of since the ambush. Yet the idea of being changed, altered beyond human, made him uncertain. Would he still be himself? Or just some machine? Some mix of parts that didn't belong? Seeing his doubt, Aris's voice softened. You do not need to decide now. But know this, Ethan, you are not being offered a gift as a reward. You are being given recognition. The Empire honors those who prove themselves beyond measure. And you have. That night, Ethan could not sleep. He stared at the glowing ceiling, his thoughts spinning. He remembered the forest, the quiet mornings, the simple days before everything changed. He remembered the pain of the plasma bolt, the way his body refused to obey. He remembered his mother's smile, his father's steady hands. Would they even recognize him if he returned with a body of steel and dragon-forged bone? And yet, could he bear living like this forever, trapped in a still body, needing help, for every breath, every movement? Tears slipped down his cheeks. He felt trapped between two worlds, the boy he had been and the figure the galaxy now saw. The next day, more visitors came. This time they were not nobles or soldiers. They were ordinary people, settlers, traders, workers. They asked permission to see the boy who had saved the crown. Aris allowed them. One by one they stepped close. A farmer placed a hand over his heart and bowed deeply. A mother brought her small child who whispered, "Thank you," in a shy voice. A young man in worn clothes said, "Because of you, my world is safe." Ethan lay speechless. He wanted to tell them it was nothing, that he was no hero. But the gratitude in their eyes was real, and it warmed something inside him. Perhaps he had not meant to change anything, but maybe his act had still given hope. Later, when the room was quiet again, Ethan whispered, "Aris, I don't understand. Why me? Why did it have to be me?" The dragon lowered his head, his golden eyes burning like suns. "Because you were there. Because your heart is what it is. Sometimes the smallest flame can light the greatest darkness. That flame was you." Ethan swallowed hard. "But I'm just human. And humans," Aris said slowly, "are not so small as the galaxy believes." As weeks passed, the Empire pressed harder for a decision. The restoration process could begin at any time. Specialists waited with their instruments, ready to rebuild him. Ethan wrestled with the choice every day. Part of him longed to say yes, to walk again, to be free of the machines, to run beside Aris, to see the worlds he spoke of. But part of him feared losing himself. What if he changed too much? What if he became a symbol, but not Ethan Hale anymore? One evening when the stars glowed outside the high windows, Ethan whispered, "What if I'm not me after? What if I'm just something else?" Aris leaned close. "You will always be you, not because of bone or muscle, but because of heart. Your courage, your kindness, those cannot be replaced." Ethan closed his eyes, listening to the steady hum of the machines. Maybe Aris was right. Maybe the body was less important than the soul inside it. The day of decision finally came. The chamber was filled with quiet tension. Guardians stood in silence. The council waited in distant halls. The healers prepared their devices. A blend of human science and draconic power. Ethan lay in his bed, his heart pounding. He looked at Eris, who stood tall beside him. "Ethan," the dragon said, his voice steady, "the choice is yours. No one will force you. Whether you remain as you are or rise anew, you will still be the one who saved me." For a long moment, Ethan closed his eyes. He remembered the boy he had been, wandering the forest with a broken scanner. He remembered the dragon lying wounded. The moment he chose to step forward instead of run away. He remembered fire, pain, and the warmth of Eris's voice telling him he was not useless. When he opened his eyes again, there was no fear left. Only resolve. "I'll do it," he whispered. His voice was quiet, but it carried strength. Not for glory, not to be a symbol. "I'll do it because I want to live. I want to walk beside you, Eris." The dragon bowed his great head, pride glowing in his golden eyes. "Then live you shall, and walk, and soar as few ever will." The healers moved forward. Machines stirred, lights glowing brighter. The chamber filled with the hum of power. Ethan's body grew heavy, his eyes drifting shut as the process began. In that final moment before sleep, he heard Eris's voice once more, steady and certain. "You are more than human. You are hope." The chamber was silent except for the low hum of the machines. Ethan lay still as silver light flowed around him, weaving through wires and strange crystal coils. His body felt heavy, but not in the same way it had since the ambush. This heaviness was different, like something was being rebuilt piece by piece deep inside him. He could not see the work being done, but he felt it. Strange warmth in his chest, tiny sparks along his spine where once there had only been numbness. The sensation frightened him at first, yet it also filled him with a hope he hadn't allowed himself to feel since the day of the ambush. Eris stayed close, watching, his golden eyes never leaving Ethan's fragile form. Guardians stood in silence, their faces hidden, their weapons ready should anything go wrong. But nothing went wrong. Hours passed. Light dimmed. The machines slowed their hum. Finally, Ethan's eyes fluttered open. At first, nothing seemed different. The ceiling still glowed softly. The air still smelled of sharp metal and strange herbs. He turned his eyes slowly and saw Eris leaning close, waiting. "Ethan," the dragon said, his voice steady but low. The boy drew in a breath. It felt deeper than before, smoother, like his lungs had been polished clean. He tried to move his fingers, and to his shock they twitched. His eyes widened. Trembling, he focused again. His hand shifted against the sheets. He felt it. I moved," Ethan whispered, his voice breaking. Eris's eyes brightened, glowing like suns. "Yes, try again." Ethan did. His hand clenched, slow and weak, but it clenched. Then his arm shifted. His chest rose as he laughed breathlessly, tears streaming down his cheeks. For the first time since the ambush, he could move. The healers came closer, checking the readings, their voices calm and certain. They confirmed what Eris already knew. The restoration had worked. His spine, once shattered, was whole again. His limbs, once lifeless, lived anew. Not only restored, but strengthened with draconic biotech. When Ethan finally sat up, with help, the entire chamber seemed to exhale in relief. The weeks that followed were filled with slow, careful training. His muscles trembled with every step, but they held. He walked first with support, then on his own, each stride shaky, but real. The guardians watched with silent respect, while Eris observed with a pride he did not try to hide. For Ethan, every step was a miracle. The first time he walked across the chamber without falling, he whispered, "Thank you," though he did not know if he meant the healers, the machines, or Eris himself. Perhaps all of them, but the changes were more than physical. He felt stronger in ways he could not explain. His reflexes sharper, his breath steadier. He could sense faint things, like the hum of energy in the walls or the rhythm of footsteps in the hall outside. The healers explained it was part of the biotech woven into him, a blend of human and draconic strength. At first, this frightened him. Would he still be human? Or was he becoming something else? Eris answered his fear simply. You are still you. No crown, no machine, no forge can take that away. Ethan clung to those words. The time came when he was asked to step before the council again. This time, not lying broken in a bed, but standing tall. The grand hall was vast, filled with delegates from countless worlds. The ceiling arched high, above, lit by stars drawn across glass. The chamber was so large that Ethan felt small again, like the boy he had been in the forest. When he walked inside, whispers spread like fire. Some stared in shock, others in admiration. The boy who had once lain paralyzed now walked again. Not only walked, he carried himself with quiet strength. Eris stood beside him, no longer cloaked, his full draconic form filling the chamber with majesty. His wings shimmered silver, his scales catching the light. When he spoke, his voice thundered through the hall. This is Ethan Hale, human, savior, friend. The council bowed their heads, not only to Eris, but to Ethan as well. Ethan's heart pounded, but he did not hide. He spoke softly, yet his words carried. I never wanted to be a hero. I never wanted to be known across worlds. I only wanted to save a friend. But if that act has meaning, then let it be this. Humans may be small, but we are not weak. We can stand. We can protect. We can choose courage. Silence followed, then thunderous applause, not just from humans, but from all the gathered races. The sound echoed like waves crashing against mountains. Ethan lowered his gaze, his cheeks hot. He was still only a boy inside, but now he carried the weight of something larger, hope. Life changed quickly after that. Ethan was given a place among the Empire's honored guests, though he refused the luxuries often offered. He preferred the simple, the quiet moments with Eris. They spoke often of humanity, its struggles, its potential, its heart. Your people will rise, Eris said one evening, as they looked at the stars through the high windows. Perhaps not in fleets or armies yet, but in spirit. You are the proof. Ethan shook his head lightly. I don't know if I'm proof of anything. I just made a choice. A choice, Eris replied, can shape empires. Months later, Ethan returned once more to Rathira 7, his home. The settlement gathered in wonder as he walked among them, taller, stronger, yet still the boy they remembered. His parents embraced him tightly, their tears wet against his shoulder. For them, he was not a hero of empires. He was their son, alive and whole. Ethan stayed for a time, helping with the machines, walking the forest paths again. Yet he knew he could not remain forever. His life was no longer tied only to one colony. His steps now reached across the stars. When he left, his people did not grieve. They stood proud, knowing one of their own had become a bridge to the future. Years later, the story of Ethan Hale spread across worlds like a legend. Songs were sung of the human boy who took a blast of fire for the Imperial dragon. Statues rose, not of a warrior with weapons, but of a boy standing beside a dragon, their eyes meeting as equals. But for Ethan himself, the legacy was simpler. He was not a ruler, not a conqueror. He was a friend who had made a choice, and through that choice found a place in a galaxy larger than he had ever imagined. Beside Eris, now Emperor of the Draconic Empire, Ethan traveled from world to world, a living bridge between humanity and dragons. Wherever he went, he carried the same quiet truth, that courage is not measured by strength of body, but by the heart willing to stand when no one else will. And so the boy who once wandered the forest with a broken scanner became a name spoken across the stars. Not because he sought glory, but because he showed what it meant to be human. In the end, when Ethan stood upon the high balcony of the Imperial Palace, looking out at the endless stars, He felt no fear of the future. He had walked through pain, through despair, through choices that reshaped worlds. And still, he was Ethan, a boy who once saved a dragon, a friend whose courage lit the way, a human who had proven, to the galaxy and to himself, that even the smallest spark could burn brighter than empires.